This is what Serene Ponds looks like now. It's got an atmosphere that's completely changed the game, but it didn't start out this way. After getting the core gameplay working in the first devlog, the world felt rather empty. So for the next step, I knew I had to focus on the atmosphere of the game, which I think is the second most important part of the game after the gameplay. Here's how I built it. When I play games, I find the main thing that sets the atmosphere is whether the game has seasons. I love playing games that move through the seasons, especially when the game's a creative sandbox. So to get the atmosphere just right in Serene Ponds, I knew that I had to have seasons in the game. So I worked on this first. I set up logic to change the colour of the grass, leaves, and moss when the seasons change. I've also set up some subtle post-processing effects that change per season to enhance the overall vibe even more. With seasons set up, the next step was weather. I want Serene Ponds to be as relaxing as possible, and personally, I find nothing more relaxing than listening to lo-fi music whilst it's raining outside. So I began adding weather effects into the game. Right now there are 3 weather modes: clear, foggy, and rain, but I'll also be adding snow and thunderstorms in the near future. The third piece of the puzzle was the time of day. I originally planned to create a full day and night cycle to help convey the passage of time. However, I remember when playing games like City Skylines, I found that I would be skipping the nighttime so that I could get back to the daytime so that I can clearly see what I'm building. But then, once I finished building, I would actually be skipping the daytime to go back to nighttime to see what my build looks like at night. It's a lot of back and forth, and it feels a bit awkward, so because of this, I thought for Serene Ponds it would be much nicer to have a simple day or night toggle in the game. This lets you just choose which time you want to see at a click of a button. Now that the game has a lot of visual atmosphere, we need to add audio atmosphere. So I added sound effects with weather effects early, as I knew this is one of the core things that would help enhance the atmosphere. With the sound effects in place, I knew my next step was to create a dedicated music player that plays the game's lo-fi soundtrack. This was quite easy to do, but when playing the game, I still felt that something was missing. So I've also added an additional audio layer, which is ambient tracks in the background, and these ambient tracks will change depending on the season and the time of day. With the atmosphere coming together, I then turned my attention to something that had been bugging me: the UI. I had created a basic UI for development purposes, but I desperately wanted to polish it, not only for my own sanity, but also so that I could get screenshots and a trailer ready for the game's Steam page release. I wanted to make a UI that's very minimalistic, so that it's not very intrusive. So I've gone for simple panels with icons and buttons. On the left we have the 3 main gameplay modes, on the right there are the atmospheric toggles, and at the top there is the music player. You may have noticed that there are some new meshes in this video. Since the last devlog, I've continued to flesh out the meshes in the game, and I have added trees, bushes, bridges, lanterns, and some new rocks. This gives a really nice foundation to the game, however I will continue to expand the meshes from this point onwards, and even when the game launches in free updates. In the last devlog, I mentioned how frogs can fly off into the sky if the terrain is raised beneath them. I immediately assumed this is something that needed to be fixed. However, when I posted the clip to TikTok, people actually really liked it, and they asked me to keep it in the game. So instead of removing it, I've toned it down a bit so they don't fly off quite as far. This proves quite a funny little gameplay feature, but it does leave an interesting issue. What happens when a frog lands on its side or upside down? After some consideration, I decided that the best solution is to allow the player to move the frog around themselves. This feels really good, and because the game is meant to allow you to create a little pond diorama, I realised that actually having frogs hopping around, getting in the way whilst you're trying to build, and running off when you're trying to take a nice screenshot could actually be quite annoying. So I've decided to keep the frogs stationary for now. They do have subtle movement, however they will only move large distance when you drag them. This lets you create the exact scene that you want. Now that Serene Ponds has the atmosphere that I'd envisioned for the game, I put together content for its Steam page and published it. The game is coming out November 3rd, and a demo will be available in Next Fest this October, so if you're interested in the game, you can support it by wishlisting. Thank you for all the support the game has had so far. I've seen that on social media the game is really resonating with people, which makes me really happy. I'm looking forward to the next few months, and I can't wait to see what ponds people create when it launches. I'll also be continuing to update the game with more free content after launch. If you're interested in seeing any updates or behind the scenes, make sure to join the Discord server. The link to the Discord is in the description of the video.